Hello, my name is Amber Loveland. I'm one of the water rights specialists here at the division. If you are calling in asking questions, you might get me on the phone. Oftentimes I'll get people calling asking about how to get a start card for their well or what they need to do to get water on their property. So hopefully this presentation clarifies some of that for you. Today, I'd like to give you a general overview of our website and some of the tools that you might find useful as you begin your process of filing applications with the division. We'll talk about how to complete an application. I'll give a little intro to the public land survey system, which is the mapping system we use here at the division. We'll talk about some of the calculations you may need to do when you're preparing your paperwork, as well as what you'll need to do to prepare your application map. So let's begin with some of the website tools. All right, so when you go to our website, as you can see at the bottom of the screen there, www.waterrights.utah.gov, this is the screen you'll get. It'll look very similar to this. So I would like to point out three of the major things that you'll use quite often when navigating our website, and that's actually on this right-hand side of the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and focus in on that. So the first thing I'd like to point out is up at the top here, there is this search bar. So this is super helpful when you are searching for water rights. You can search by water right number, by exchange number. You can search by owner's name, so the name on record. You can even do a map search of your property, see what water rights are around. So that's super helpful when you're beginning to either look for water rights to buy or if you have current water rights in your name. Next, underneath that is this Applications Forms tab. This is where you're going to find any of the applications or paperwork you may file here with the division. So it's all there. I will also point out that this is where you update your address with the division. It is the owner's responsibility to keep a current address with us, and so we do have a very easy-to-use hyperlink in there that will send it straight to our front desk saying that your address has changed, so something to note for the test. Below that is our policy by water right area map. Now this is super helpful for a lot of reasons, and so I'm going to go ahead and pretend as if I am clicking here. Once you have clicked there on our website, you're going to get a screen just like this. I would like to point out, you can see that all of the different counties are broken up there clearly. We've assigned different watershed areas with different numbers. And also everything is color-coded by the regional office in which you'd be working with. So I'm going to go ahead and pretend as if I'm clicking here on Rich County. And it's going to bring up a screen just like this. This is where you're going to find all of the useful information that you're going to need to know when you begin your water rights process. So I'll kind of go through each section so you know what they mean. At the top there, you'll see that management section. This is where you're going to find any decrees or groundwater management plans for the area. Decrees are typically come about through the adjudication process or from court cases. Groundwater management plans are typically 3-year studies on the area. So if you're looking for information, that's a good place to start. Under that, for the purpose of my presentation, the Sources tab, this is very important. So this is where you're going to go to find out if you are able to apply for water in the area or if you're going to need to find water for sale and then file change applications to move it to your property. So if I were to look closely in this particular area, Rich County, it does look like there are limited sources available, so you can file for a home, a little bit of irrigation, some livestock. Now, some areas are closed to appropriation, which means there is no more water that you can apply for, so you'll have to find water, purchase it, and file a change application. So in this case, though, I just want a little home. I can file an application to appropriate. Under that, I'll point out the general section. This is helpful in the sense that you can find what the duty value is for the area, which I will talk about a little bit later in the calculation section of my presentation. But you can also find other information on permitting you may need or where publishing will occur. Publishing does occur through all of our change or applications to appropriate, and this is during the process. After you've proposed your change or your application, we will publish it in a local newspaper, allowing your neighbors a chance to protest it if they think that their water right may be affected. So you'll find that information in the general section, and although that isn't listed on this screen, just below that you'll find other references, scanned documents for technical publications and whatnot. So this is just a really helpful place you can go for each of your watershed areas to get more information. I'd also like to note that if I were on this screen on our website, I could actually click on this blue highlighted area and it'll bring up a more detailed map so I can confirm, oh yes, yeah, my property, is in this, falls within this area, or no, it's outside of it. So just a useful tip when you're navigating through it. All right, so now that you have a background on our website and some of the helpful places you can go, let's talk about actually filing applications. So there are some elements that are common to all applications, whether that be changes, exchanges, or applications to appropriate. The first is that we will need to know, obviously, the name of the applicant. We do need a valid address, and we'll want to know the ownership interest you have in the right. We'll want to know the amount of water. So typically water is measured in acre feet. You'll see that most often, which is a volume measurement, but sometimes we'll see a flow, which is a cubic foot per second. We'll need to know where you plan on diverting the water from. So we want to know the exact place you're pulling the water from the source. So if you plan on digging a well, and then maybe there's a canal to your irrigation site, we want to know where that well is, not where you're starting to irrigate. So the actual point of diversion. We want to know how you plan on using the water. Are you planning on irrigating? Do you want a part-time home, a full-time home? Do you want any stock watering? A few more common things. We need to know where you plan on using the water. And you will need to include a map, but we do have a mapping wizard on our website, which I'll go over a little bit later, that makes this fairly easy. And then all owners will need to sign all applications. So if your water right is in the name of your trust, you'll need to sign as a trustee. If you are the manager of an LLC, you'll need to sign as the manager. If you are filing if you have shares in an irrigation company, the irrigation company is considered a member or a party member on that change, so you'll need to make sure that they sign it as well. So something to keep in mind. There is a filing fee for all applications, which begins at $150. As you are filing for more and more water, this price goes up. All right, so now that we know kind of the basis of what goes into all of our applications, when you're giving us a call and you have questions, please hopefully you've prepared all of this information, so what you need to know before you call us as to make the process smoother. First off, hopefully you've done your research and you know if you are able to apply for an application to appropriate, so that would be a new water right, or if you're filing a change application, meaning you found an existing water right, you purchased it, you maybe want to change it and have it moved to your property. Do you have a contract? Most typically this is seen with Weber Basin Water Conservancy District, or do you have shares in an irrigation company? We will want to know where you plan on diverting the water. We can't tell you this, so hopefully you've navigated your parcel, you figured out where you plan on putting that well. Although this is just a proposal, you'll want to be as accurate as possible as to avoid having to do a mandatory paperwork later on. You'll have to tell us where you plan on using the water. So again, know your parcel information and whatnot, and how you plan on using the water. Now, there are some filing mistakes that we see over and over again, so I would like to point out a couple just to hopefully steer you clear of them. The first is that people will call in and they say, okay, I'm ready to file my change application, and they haven't actually updated the ownership on their water right yet. So everything is public record. That first search bar I showed you in the top right-hand corner, you can always search for your water right. Say you just purchased it. You'll want to make sure that you have gone through the additional steps to have our records updated. So check the division's records. If you have shares in an irrigation company, make sure that you have reached out to that irrigation company. Their records are updated, our records are updated. If you have a contract with Weber Basin, again, make sure that you have a valid contract, everything's clear with them, with us, before calling in to file your change or beginning your change. Okay. The next is that you may need to complete a segregation, and there are a number of reasons why you may need to complete a segregation before filing your paperwork or your change, and that could be that potentially you just want to file a change on a portion of your water right. So say you have a water right with 100 acres of irrigation, and you intend to move 1 acre of that irrigation to a new property, but the rest is going to remain the same. It might make the most sense to segregate off that one portion or that 1 acre to then file the change. So move it from the parent water right to its own water right number to make filing the change simple. Another reason is maybe you are one of several owners on a water right, and you're the only one that intends to change the place of use or the point of diversion, and so you would file a segregation first to move your portion off. Finally, proper evaluation of the water rights. So if you are ever on our website and you look up your water right and you see that your water right is saying unevaluated, which unevaluated in the uses, and there are multiple water rights associated with that, that will need to be addressed before you can file your change, and there is another presentation on that, so I won't go too in-depth. So let's talk a little bit more about segregating water rights, as that's one of the applications you can file here at the division. There are a number of reasons, like I mentioned a couple before, but a number more reasons why you may segregate your water rights. The first is that you may just want to take a small portion out for a change. Again, that 100 acre irrigation example, you're moving out 1 acre for a change. Or another reason is maybe you are part of a 4-lot subdivision, and you have finished building your home, you have put your water to beneficial use, but your neighbors are still building. Well, you would want to segregate off your portion or your home, that area, or your amount of water, so that you could file proof on it, which is the final part of the water right process. So that would be one reason. Another option or another reason is a share statement, or you have shares in the irrigation company, which is very much like making a change application. Or sometimes people want to file segregations just because they like to have clean records. They don't like seeing the other owners on a water right, and so they will file a change to have their portion, or a segregation to have their portion moved. Here is the segregation form, and like most of our forms, it's made fairly easy with our wizards online. And again, you can access these through the Applications and Forms tab that I showed you, that second one down on the right-hand side of our main page. And if I were doing this through the Application Wizard, which I have before this, it would populate the majority of this information, making it fairly easy. So I'm going to point some of that out to you. The first is I would have put in my parent water right number, or the water right number I am segregating from, which in turn will populate all of the left side of the document that you're going to see here. So in this case, the acre feet and so the amount of water and the uses will populate automatically. And in this case, there is a change on this water right, so that populates as well. Then you will go in and you will tell us what you plan on removing from the parent water rights. So in this case, I am segregating out 1 acre foot, which equates to 0.33 acre. And from the change, you'll also have to tell us what uses and the amount that's coming out. So in this case, the 1 acre foot, 0.33 acre. Then it should populate with all of the owners automatically. So you'll want to make sure that that everyone signs. In this case, both owners will need to sign, and they have. And once we have processed it, we will assign you a brand new water rate number. So that 1 acre foot will now be under 65-4030. And you have successfully segregated off a small portion of your water rate. All right, so next I'm going to go into the public land survey system, which I said a little bit earlier is our mapping system we use here at the division. I would like to point out that we do have two systems we go off of. There is the Salt Lake Basin Meridian and the Utah Basin Meridian, or Uinta Basin Meridian. You'll notice that the Salt Lake Basin Meridian, so this whole blue area, takes up the majority of our state. Uinta Basin Meridian is much smaller. It is very organized, the Salt Lake Basin Meridian system, and is based off of Temple Square downtown. So just like our downtown is pretty organized, so too is this mapping system in theory. Uinta, now that smaller region, Uinta Basin Meridian, the focal point or the center point, starting point, is about 9 miles outside of Roosevelt. And the reason I point that out and why it's important is just to be aware of which basin meridian system you'll be mapping in, because if you don't have it selected correctly on our website as you're mapping out your place of use or your point of diversion, it will map incorrectly. Let me show you what it'll look like. So, for example, if I'm mapping in Township 4 South, Range 5 West in the Uinta Basin Meridian, I'm going to populate here. But, I meant to be in Salt Lake Basin Meridian, and so it was actually clear over in Tooele. So just be mindful of that as you're mapping, just so that you map correctly and you're not having to do a mandatory paperwork later on. All right, let's talk about public land survey system, and I'll give a brief explanation, but sometimes examples are the easiest way to understand this system, so I will get into those after this. So imagine we are downtown in Salt Lake City, and we are at this red center point here, which is Temple Square. If I were to walk 6 miles due north, I would be standing on Township 1 North, which are the columns. So townships are the columns in the PLS system. Now, if I'm back at Temple Square and I walk 6 miles east, then I would be on Range 1 East, which are the rows. So between these township and ranges, we are able to locate different areas. So in this case, I'm going to focus in on this Township 2 South, Range 2 West here. So this is a 6 mile square area. I am then able to break that up into smaller sections so that I can slowly narrow down my place of use. So I've taken that township and range and I've broken it up again into 36 sections. So those are all 1 mile square areas. Now, if my home is located, it's on a very small parcel, it's actually in section 13, so I've blown it up, I am able to narrow this down even further. So this would be considered the northeast quarter of section 13, the northwest quarter of section 13, and so on. And then I can actually go even smaller. So I could break this quarter section up again into quarters. And so this would be the northeast quarter of the northeast quarter, the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter, and so on. So those small little quarters, which is the smallest that we get in here at the division, those are actually 40-acre tracts, if you have ever heard that term before. I would like to comment that this is in an ideal system where there's no mountains, where there's no rivers, where there's nothing that can break up the system and create what's called lots. So for all intensive purposes in my presentation, we're going to assume that it's all flat and it lines up. Okay, so let me just, because I briefly went over that in the last slide, I make this a little bit bigger so that you can see it a little more clear how we've broken up each section. Again, those sections are 1 mile square areas. And you can see we're able to break them up into quarter sections. So this would be the northeast quarter. And then you can break them up even smaller. So like the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter. Or if your property is a little bit bigger, something like the west half of the southeast quarter. And then, when we are mapping, which I'll show in examples, we do go off of corners. So the northeast corner, the north quarter corner, the northwest corner, and so on. All right, so it's most helpful just to see these mapped out. It's easiest to grasp when practicing PLS. So everything is read in reverse, and so it'll be mapped in reverse. So I'm going to start, for example, in this blue example, at the east quarter corner. So here I am at the east quarter corner. I'm going to go south 500 feet, and then I'm going to go west 1,200 feet. Mapping just about here. For another example, again working in reverse, I'm going to start out at the southeast corner this time, and I'm only going due north for 2,000. And then finally, and this would be obviously for points of diversion, we're going to start at the northwest corner. I'm going to go south 1,300 feet and east 4,000 feet. So I would actually map over here. So this is helpful just to refer back to. Sometimes this stuff takes time just to look over it and kind of grasp what's going on in your head and practice it out a little bit. Very similar is marking a place of use, except for now we are mapping out areas rather than just a point on the map. So let's just go ahead and start practicing. Again, we work in reverse, so I'm going to start with this northwest corner. So the northwest corner or quarter, and then I can break that up into quarters, and it's the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter. So it's this top region. All right, well, my property's a little bigger than that 40-acre tract, so this time I'm going to work with the southwest quarter down here, and it's actually the whole south half of it. So that's where my property falls. Again, working on this green one, we're still in this southwest quarter, but this time it's just the northeast quarter of it. And then lastly, I've got a big homestead. I've got quite a bit of land, so I'm going to show you how maybe to map out a bigger portion. You'll still work in reverse on these. Let's start back here. So I've got the northeast quarter this time. Okay, that's this one. But it's the whole south half of it, okay? But also the northwest quarter, okay, that's over here, and this whole south half of that. So together, it's going to map like that. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the calculations that you may need to use or may need to do when you are figuring out how much water you need or, what uses you have, etc. The first thing I'd note, and I did mention this earlier, that how we measure water, and more often than not, you'll see acre-feet amount. Like I said, sometimes you'll see cubic feet per second, depending on the area or the water rate. But for all intents and purposes, for my calculations today, we will work in acre-feet. Okay, this might be a slide you'll want to just mark. This is helpful to have ready to go. Basic calculations on how irrigation works. Domestics, full-time domestics are always 0.45 acre-feet per year. They require 0.45 acre-feet. Part-time domestic or home is considered like a cabin or a summer home, requires 0.25 acre-feet per year. Now, livestock are fixed units as well. So one equivalent livestock unit, or ELU, requires 0.028 acre-feet per year. One livestock unit is considered one cow or one horse here at the division, and then prorates from there. So you can have 5 pigs, sheep, or goats to the one cow, 33.3 chickens to the one cow, and we actually have a whole list of animals. On our website, there is a water rights calculator, which is super helpful, that lists a whole bunch of animals, and if there is an animal that you need to add it on there, just reach out to us. We'll do some math for you and figure out how much water you may need. Okay, so let's just get into some problems. A rancher wants to start a farm near Dugway, Utah. How much water does he need for 5 acres of irrigation, 50 cattle year-round, and a full-time home? The irrigation duty in Dugway is 4 acre-feet per acre, and for the rest of my problems, I will use the same duty if that's helpful to remember. So first off, I want to figure out how much water he needs for that irrigation. So he wants 5 acres of irrigation. I'm going to multiply that by the 4 acre-foot duty to find that he needs 20 acre-feet for that. The 50 cattle, you're going to multiply that by that fixed number of 0.028. He needs 1.4 acre-feet for that. And then the full-time home we know is always 0.45 acre-feet. So if I add that all together, he needs 21.85 acre-feet if his intention is to use 5 acres of irrigation, 50 cattle year-round, and the full-time home. Okay, another problem. A rancher has a water right for 300 cattle. How many sheep could he provide for with this water right? So if you remember, it's 5 sheep to the 1 cow. So we can multiply 5 by the 300 cattle that he always has. He can have up to 1,500 sheep with this water right. So that would mean he gets rid of all 300 cows. He replaces them with 1,500 sheep. He does not need to file a change application with our office. A livestock unit or a livestock water right, stock water right, is a stock water right. We don't care what livestock you have, as long as you've done your math correctly and you've converted, you're not overusing any water. Okay. A developer wants to build a 10-lot subdivision in Delta, Utah. Each lot is supposed to have enough water for 0.25 acre of irrigation, 2 horses, and a full-time home. How much diversion will the water right need to have? Okay, so let's figure out with just 1 lot how much water he's going to need. Okay, so he wants to have a 1/4 acre of irrigation around each lot. We're going to multiply that by that 4 acre-foot duty to find that he needs 1 acre-foot for the irrigation around each home. The 2 horses, multiply that by that fixed rate of 0.028. He needs 0.056 acre-feet for the livestock. We know a full-time home is 0.45 acre-feet. So we add those together. Each lot will require 1.506 acre-feet, but he wants to have 10 of them. So we'll multiply that by 10. He needs 15.06 acre-feet total for this project. All right. A farmer has a water right in Brigham City that serves 150 cattle year-round. He wants to change the water right to supply 1 full-time home, 1 part-time home, 10 horses, and irrigation for his yard. What is the maximum area in acres that can be irrigated after the other uses are accounted for? Well, first let's figure out what acre-foot amount he's working with his 150 cattle. So he has the 150 cows already. We multiply that by that fixed rate of 0.028. He has 4.2 acre-feet. So now let's figure out what he's changing. So we know for sure he wants the full-time home, the part-time home, which is 0.25 acre-feet always. And then he wants to have retain some of that livestock. So 10 horses in this case. We multiply by the 0.028 fixed rate, showing 0.28 acre-feet. We can add that together and we'll subtract that from his original 4.2 acre-feet amount to see what he has left for irrigation. So 4.2 minus the 0.98, he has 3.22 acre-feet that he can work with for irrigation. So now we're actually going to be converting from acre-feet to acres. So we're going to divide by that duty value this time. And he can irrigate 0.805 acre. I'll leave that up for 1 second, just so you can go through it. Did go a little fast. All right, so let's talk about diversion and depletion. So let me give you a basis of what diversion and depletion are. So diversion is the amount of water you're actually pulling from the earth. I am pulling 10 acre-feet of water from the earth. Depletion, on the other hand, is the amount of water that is consumed without returning to the earth. So if I'm pulling out 10 acre feet and I am watering my alfalfa field, only maybe 50% of that water is returning back to the water system. The rest is evaporating or it's being consumed by the crop. Basically, half as much water is actually returning to the water system. So this is something we do have to account for when we are filing these change applications, because you can't be pulling more water and have it not returning to the system, because over time, if everyone were doing that, we would have no water. So it's important that we look at historically what you have been diverting and depleting versus now you're changing your uses. Will the same amount of depletion occur, or will additional depletion occur? So let me give some examples. A water right owner has a water right for 3 acres of irrigation. Again, we're going with the duty value of 4. He wants to change the use to include 50 cattle. How many acre feet of water will he be able to divert after the change? Assume the rate of depletion for irrigation is 53%. So one thing I'd like to point out before this is that we do consider livestock to be 100% depletive, meaning the water isn't returning to the system. Irrigation typically falls around the 50% mark. So let's just get into some calculations. So first off, we want to figure out how much was actually being diverted and depleted. Well, to find diversion, we've been doing this with our last problems. We know that we can multiply that acre amount by that duty to get our acre foot amount. So he's been diverting 12 acre feet. Okay, well, 53% of that is being depleted. And so we're going to multiply by that 53% to find that 6.36 acre feet is being depleted. So that's either being consumed by the crop, it's being evaporated, it's not making it back into the water system. So we need to make sure that when we file our changes, we do not deplete more than this 6.36 acre feet of water, just as we wouldn't be able to divert more than the 12 acre feet of water. Okay, so he wants to add in those cattle. So let's see what that might do to this. Well, we've done these calculations before, but the 50 cattle, we multiply that by the 0.028 acre feet. Fixed rate, we know that he's diverting 1.4 acre feet, which again, cows, livestock, 100% consumptive. Okay, well, before he had that depletion of 6.36 acre feet, he cannot exceed that. So we have to subtract the 1.4 acre feet, which is 100% being consumed already. That means he has 4.96 acre feet of depletion left that he can work with to convert that back into the irrigation. Okay, so 4.96, that's what we have left on the depletion. This time we're going to divide by that 53% depletion value for the crop. He has 9.36 acre feet remaining. Divide that by the duty. He can now irrigate 2.34 acre of irrigation. So 1.4 acre feet plus the 9.36 acre feet, he has a total diversion of 10.76 acre feet of diversion. So you can see how we went from 12, it's now only 10 that he's able to pull, 10.76 acre feet that he's able to divert. It feels a bit like a haircut, which is what we call it. And I have put these into some charts to make it a little more clear, because this is kind of a difficult concept to understand. So again, historically, remember, it was all irrigation. He had the 3 acres, the 12 acre feet he was pulling. That rate of depletion was 6.36 acre feet. With his proposed change, where he adds in that livestock, which is 100% consumptive, he is only able now to divert 10.76 acre feet, so that this depletion remains at 6.36 acre feet. So he can't divert as much, but he is not depleting any more than he should. If he had not accounted for the depletion rate, and he would have continued to divert the 12 acre feet, you can see that now 7.02 acre feet would be being depleted from the system, which means he's exceeded his historic depletion by 0.66 acre feet. Over time, if everyone were doing that, the water in our water system would disappear. All right, so now let's talk about making your application map. I will also go into our mapping system a little bit because it is super user-friendly and very helpful as you navigate through water rights. So when you are mapping on our mapping wizard for your applications, your change applications, your applications to appropriate, you will need to find your property on an aerial map, but it's quite easy to navigate, and so if you can find maybe some local cross streets or some familiar places, you can navigate through that, or we can search by parcel number, things like that. But you'll also want to know, again, as I said earlier, the approximate location of where you plan on putting that well. So like I said, you'll want to be as close to as possible as to avoid having to do amendatory paperwork, so come prepared. We do have a really easy map wizard that makes it quite easy to work with. Again, that's found on the Applications Forms tab on that first few slides I showed you on our main page. It allows you to select your parcel from an aerial photo and then print it. You can populate it with signature lines. We ask that if you're sending in your map separate from any of your paperwork, that you populate with those signature lines and all members or all party members sign that map. If you're sending in your map with your application, then it doesn't need to be signed. Sometimes people try to sneak it as a proof map. This will not work for your proof map. So this is a sample of what it'll look like when you are on our mapping wizard. You can see here, I'll point some things out, that this hatched area, this is actually the parcel that this individual has shown as their place of use. This pink point is their point of diversion. If you go down here, it will populate with the PLS location of that point of diversion. So they were able to navigate through all of these areas, which allows you to maybe change it from aerial to something else. If populate parcel lines so you can find your property and map this out for us. They have chosen to populate it with that signature box. Again, all owners would need to sign if you're sending it in separate from your application. Okay, so when you are on our website, on that top right search bar, if you remember, I said that you can search by map. So we do have a wonderful mapping system. If you pulled up our map, it's going to look something similar to this. This would be like a zoomed in picture of a location. I'll point out that all of these red dots are points of diversion. They are wells. This blue one here would be a surface point of diversion, so maybe from a stream or river, something of that sort. These pink dots, that is a well that has multiple water rights associated with it. So I can actually go ahead and pretend as if I'm clicking on one. You'll get a hyperlink here for those multiple water rights, making it easy to click on. It'll pull up the water right. You can navigate through and see who they belong to or how much water is associated with them, etc. On the right-hand side of our map, you'll actually see this exact toolbar. Super helpful. There are tons of different options in here that you can play with. On this one, I have actually selected parcels. So you can see these white lines are all parcels. So it'll show parcels with the parcel number. You can put up duty values. I mean, there's lots of ways you can work it. So a base map, you can actually change it from aerial view to topography. Lots of ways you can fiddle with that as well. The search bar, super helpful. This is where I can search maybe by water right number specifically. It'll jump on the map to that. I can search by address to see if maybe my address is associated. Maybe there's a well on my property. I don't know who it belongs to. It's not me. You can search there. You can also search by parcel number, which most of the time works. And then over here, tools, this is a helpful tab that can be used to print off what you're seeing, the map you're seeing, maybe measure between two locations. Really, there's just a lot of options on this mapping system that make it easy to navigate through our water rights. So again, if I were to click on that search, you can see here I can search by water right number, maybe search by change, exchange, address, county parcel, quite a number. Okay, so to just briefly overview what we have discussed today, we've kind of talked about the general website and places you will go as you navigate through filing your applications to appropriate your change applications. We talked a little bit about the PLS system, or the Public Land Survey System. We did some basic calculations. We talked about diversion and depletion a little bit. And we talked about creating your maps through our mapping system. So I will now open this time up for questions if you guys have any. Thank you so much.